Hello and welcome, my name is Vlad, and in this tutorial I will show you how to create a simple but realistic fabric materials for sofas in the Material Maker software. Material Maker is an open source software, free to every user, that allows you to create PBR materials, paint textures, and basically a free version of the Substance Painter. It also allows you to create graph materials like in Unity Shader Graph or in Blender. And in this tutorial I will teach you step by step how all those nodes work. So let's begin. First of all, if you ever saw a sofa, you know how those fabrics look. So let's add a pattern by pressing right mouse button click and search fibers. That adds a node called fibers, and Material Maker describes it as pattern. As you can see, the things look like that. And it has a property called repeat. This field tells us how many times the texture will be repeated. So let's crank up this thing to 16 at least, I think. Something like that. Okay. We can already put it into the normal map to see how it works, or using the colorize node to the albedo to see how it looks. But let's add another fibers node, because in the sofas it's not only straight lines, it is a checked pattern. So let's begin. We can duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D and put it down. Basically, if we now combine those textures, we will get only this straight pattern. It is not acceptable, so let's rotate this texture. Luckily, Material Maker provides us with a rotate node. So let's by pressing right mouse button click, search rotate. Rotate is a transform node that allows us to rotate textures and assign it center. Okay, let's see. If we press on the rotate node, we can see a center. We can move this center on the X axis and Y axis. Something like that, but we don't need it. Okay, let's press 0 and rotate this texture by 90 degrees. Okay, as you can see, the texture looks like that now. So let's zoom out a little bit by pressing Ctrl button and scrolling our mouse wheel. Okay, so let's move it a bit. Okay, next thing we need to blend those two textures together. And how we can do it? Pretty much simple. Press right mouse button click again and search for the blend. So blend is a filter node. It allows us using source one for the background and for the foreground source 2. It has many different options like dissolve, multiply, screen overlay and so on. If you are familiar with Photoshop, you know what that thing means. So let's add these things to the foreground and this thing to the background. Something like that. As you can see in this blend node, our texture now looks pretty much like that. It's pretty much cool, but it is too checked pattern. So let's increase repeats here to 30 at least, and pretty much it looks good. Next thing in this blend pattern, we have a property called opacity. This property shows what input is more valuable than other. If we press and set it to 0.07, as you can see, we choose the second options to 1. And if we press 0, we choose source 1 option. Okay, so let's put it back to 0.5, something like that. Okay, we can use normal here, or you can try to multiply, whatever suits you better, but we will go with normal. Okay, next thing, we need to add a bumps to those flat surfaces. Okay, by pressing right mouse button click, let's search normal map. Okay, next thing, we need to plug a normal map to the normal map output. Okay, and move it a little bit again and put this output in the normal map input. As you can see, this normal map has 3 properties. Sobel is a type of normal map. It is used for the most rendering engines and pretty much default. Next parameter is resolution of our normal map. For now it is set to 124 by 124 and it pretty much does the job. Next thing is the strength of the bump. As you can see, for now it looks like that. And if we increase this thing, it pretty much doesn't move. Okay. Next thing, as you can see, every surface has a noise type input. So let's add a noise. Okay, move up a little bit and by pressing right mouse button click, search for the FBM noise. Here you are. And you can see that this noise looks like that. It is a value noise and we don't need a value noise. It has many very different noise types. For metal materials we will use a noise map, but for fiber surfaces we will use a Perlin noise. As you can see, this thing looks pretty much like you use a noise in the blender. Okay, so let's crank a scale a little bit again to 16, I think, and here to 16 by y-axis again. It is too rough and too obvious for a user, so we have a property called persistence. It shows how many times the things look like that. We will need to crank it up to the 0.9 to see what this looks like. Okay, this pretty much does the job, and again, we don't need this thing to be colored on our albedo map. We just need to blend this thing and this thing together to receive a cool bump effect. So again, add a blend filter and put this output here and this output here. Let's move it up a little bit. So let's put this output together, like that. Okay, as you can see, the surface now looks like that. We don't need too much noise, so let's crank the opacity to the other value. Something like that, to 0.7 or 0.69. Okay, next step, let's just mix those two values together in the normal map. Plug it here, and as you can see, the result is now looking pretty much better. It still doesn't look like a fiber material, but it is better. Okay, let's move this in half. And what a realistic materials needs is a height map or a displacement map. So let's just add a invert node. Invert filter node. Okay. So by dragging this blend option here and invert to the depth controls our normal map field. We can see that the thing is pretty much high. Okay, so let's just crank this thing a little bit smaller to something like 0.1 for instance, and it looks pretty much better. Okay. Still too much, so let's add a 0.05 to that thing. Okay. Next thing, we need to add a color to those map. Okay. And it is pretty much simple. By pressing right mouse button click, type colorize. Colorize is a filter tool. It allows a gradient color from this color to this color. Okay, and let's place this here, and as you can see, the color will be looking like that. It is okay, but we don't need too much black and too much white. Okay, let's change this color to something more orange. Not so orange, to something like that. But you can change this color to anything you want really. Okay, and by pressing here, it is okay. And colorize node should be plugged into albedo texture. And our material is pretty much looking better now. It may not look on the cube as good as it will look on the model, but it is here. The roughness will be set to 1 for simplify the complexity of the material, and let's increase the normal map size texture to 248 to 448. It has even 8K texture, but we don't need that much. Okay, let's increase. And pretty much this is it. Our material is ready. Let's see how it looks on the cylinder. So as you can see, this material looks like fiber. So we can now export it to the Blender, Godot engine, Unity, Unity HDRP or Unreal. So pretty much thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.